Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Tales with TR, episode 243B. And today, my guest was born in Mississauga, Ontario, and burst onto the world canoeing scene as a teenager in 2013, the ICF World Junior Championships, and evolved quickly on the international stage, earning her first of three World Cup golds in the C1 200-meter event under 23 in 2015. She has been a force to be reckoned with ever since. In 2020, she'd make history, winning a bronze medal at the Olympics in the women's 500 meters sprint alongside partner Laurence Vincent Lapointe. In Paris, she'd repeat that feat, this time partnered with Sloane McKenzie, and eventually became a bona fide legend as Canada and the sporting world watched as she won a photo finish in the 200-meter sprint event over the USA's Nevin Harrison. She also studied kinesiology at York University and has been involved in many charitable foundations, such as the Special Olympics, where I met her last month in beautiful St. Thomas, Ontario. She is a cool Canadian, a cheerful champ, an amazing athlete, an awesome Ontarian. Unlike Lady Gaga, she's born in Mississauga. She's boiled the odd kettle and won lots of medals. She'll be on a stamp as an Olympic gold champ. She's better than you at paddling a canoe. She's lean, not fat, and they call her Kit Kat. Folks, when I met her last month, I was impressed in an instant. Please welcome to my show, Olympic champ Katie Vincent. Katie, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty fired up to have you on my podcast because, I mean, it says hockey podcast, but I often have musicians. I have people from all shapes and sizes, all backgrounds, mostly hockey players, but never till right now a canoeist. Am I saying that right? Do you say canoeist?
Canoeist. Yeah, that's the right word. Yeah.
Okay, canoeist. So, I won't say I'm totally ignorant to the sport. We have the Royal St. John's Regatta, which is completely different. You guys do sprints, but we do have, like, I have friends that, if you want to call that canoeing at the regatta, of course, I mean, that's what they're doing. But it's not the same. It's not like these guys are going for the Olympics. This is an old, I think the event goes back to like 1816. It's a big part of St. John's culture. But much like the Olympics, once that's done, I don't really pay attention to it for a while. And I'm not trying to be ignorant, but I want to learn today a little bit about the sport. So starting out, A, thank you for being here. And B, growing up, how did you get into canoeing?
Yeah, great question. I get that asked that pretty much by everyone. So I'm from Mississauga, and I live near Port Credit, and there's a river that's the river off of Lake Ontario, the Credit River, and just a really random situation where we had neighbors growing up that were the same age as my brother and I, and we in the summer tried to link up our summer camps because we were all kind of really sporty kids and stuff. So just carpool, make it easy. And then our neighbors actually somehow had a friend with a connection to the canoe club, and my neighbor looked into it. It was going to sign up, his two of his three kids. And then my dad just walked over to him one day and said, "Hey, what are you putting in the kids in this year?" And he goes, "Oh, we found this canoe club place. They can bike down. We don't even have to drive. Super affordable." And my dad just was like, "Great. There they go. Off we go." So the first year my older brother joined, and then the second year I joined with their youngest, who were the same age. And 19 years later, still members, still go down every day. And that was about it. And our neighbors were involved for a long time. They went to junior worlds. My brother went to a junior world, so we were pretty invested over the years. But really, it was just summer camp nearby, affordable. Parents didn't have to drive, so checked all the boxes for our parents.
Incredible. Were you into any other sports growing up?
Oh yeah, big time athlete. I did a lot of soccer. I played rep soccer. I was a big alpine skier. I grew up. So we did our
wait. Okay, soccer, common, of course. I love soccer. It's one of my favorite sports.
Yeah.
My daughter plays, and I absolutely love watching. But not everybody's. Did you say downhill skiing?
Yeah, alpine ski. Yeah, ski racing.
Alpine skiing, and your full existence growing up was in Mississauga, right?
Yeah.
You know what my next question is? Where do you practice that?
So you go. So there's a little ski town about 2 hours north of the city called Collingwood. There's about 4 or 5 ski clubs up there. So yeah, my family's been a member there for as long as I can remember. So yeah, on the weekends we would go up skiing, and that turned into ski racing. And then probably when I was around 16, that's when I kind of veered towards paddling and dropped the ski racing. But yeah, we grew up, they weren't big, I wouldn't call it big hills in Collingwood, but enough to get the
Yeah.
job done. So yeah.
Enough to get the job done in practice, I suppose.
Yeah.
So when you got into canoeing, and like you said, out of convenience more than anything, and of course you were interested. I mean, lots of things are
Yeah.
convenient. But you would have been what, 9 or 10 years old?
Yeah. My first summer I would have been 10.
So 10, 6 years later, you're turning down other sports that are probably a little bit more common to focus on canoeing. So something happened in between 10 and 16 when, I guess that's when it happens for a hockey player. I mean, I think athletes in general, that's probably the age in between there. It's a 10 to 16 is 6 full years growing up. But I really do think that a lot of your personality and definitely your likes and dislikes are formed then. So when was it then? You're 12, 13? Do you win like the All Ontario? And then you're like, you know what, maybe there's a future here. Or did you just love it more than anything else, going, you know what, I'm just going to focus on this because it's fun?
A bit of both. There's definitely a decent amount of success in the paddling. And I was a good ski racer. I think in my last year of skiing, I was third or fourth in the province, which was pretty good for where I was. I was like a smaller kid. So if I had kept going, I probably would have gone up a little bit. But in paddling, I was, beating girls 3, 4, 5 years older than me. At a younger age. So it kind of, from like a success wise, and if you want to be an athlete, it made a lot more sense to choose canoeing. And then also like, I mean, skiing's cold. That's a lot of time
Yeah.
in cold places. And my winters are going to Florida and California. So when I weighed the odds and ends of being a paddler versus being a skier, I just chose
Okay.
the warm sport. Warm sport.
I love the honesty and straight up. Hey, straight up, that's a great reason. It
I'm like a
really is.
snowbird, man. I just go right down south as soon as it gets cold.
And to be, my growing up, as I was into everything too, and to be one of the best in Ontario means that just there's so many people. A lot of people listen to this from outside Canada, but Ontario is where Toronto is, which is 9 million people right off the hop. And then that's just one city. Ottawa's the capital with almost a million, or probably around a million. And then, you got, without listing, everywhere like Hamilton, Oshawa. Without listing, Ontario, I think, is our most populated. Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah.
And, Ontario, Quebec are two big presents. So if you're one of the best in Newfoundland, you might go, okay, you know what happens? I've been to the nationals in ball hockey, ice hockey, soccer, and baseball growing up. And what happens is that when we go to the national tournament, we play the host the first game, us or PEI usually. So the host wins 8-1. Everybody gets a free hot dog, and they say, those Newfoundlanders try. But if you're one of the best in Ontario at either of those sports, it by default means that you're probably one of the best in Canada. So as we joke
Yeah.
about this, it was probably a decision, even though you like the summer more than the winter, as I do.
Yeah.
That was probably a big invested decision. Now, when you make it, I'm guessing, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know a lot about canoeing. I'm fascinated by it. I mean, timing would have to be a major part of it, rhythm, timing. But at some point, hockey, you can like get by till you're like 17, 18 on your hockey IQ. But I'm guessing you had to train certain muscles early to be one of the best. No?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think it's like, I don't know. It's hard to describe. Our sport is like gymnastics on a boat, but with more cardio and a little bit less flipping. Like so it's sort of a niche sport in that sense. Like it's something that like if you started when you were 20, you wouldn't get anywhere, right? Like it takes so long to learn how to just stay up and steer and go straight.
Okay.
So I would say like it's pretty rare. Like a lot of people in my sport, like we all started when we were, under 13 for sure. Like nobody started after that. So that's where like
Okay. I
that kind
didn't
of
know
like
this.
summer camp sort of like, like the skill of it took so long to learn that if you make it till you're 18 and you're decent, like you'll probably make a national team if you just train pretty hard
Wow.
after that. And then if you want to be like successful and like a high level, like Olympian or national, or top 5 in the world, then you really gotta like take yourself to another level. But yeah, because it's so niche, it's like for you to learn the sport, it would take you years before you could even stay beside me for 5 minutes.
I
Yeah.
love, well, I'm that now that's fascinating to me. And it was one of my eventual questions. But like I often say to people when they, I don't know, I meet people from all over the world that love hockey. I think I'll start playing. And how old are you? 18. I'm like, okay, as long as you understand that, you're not talking like pro or anything, are you? Because I think it would be next to impossible because you'd have to learn the skating's everything, man. You're young and you
Hmm.
need to have time and space, and you could suck with your hands, but at least if you can skate, then you can kind of develop the other stuff. But you can't skate, you're done. So much
Yeah.
like the balance and the rhythm of being a canoeist, then you're saying, which totally blows me away. I don't want to be ignorant but I have you on here to learn. And I
Yeah.
honestly thought, hey, you know what? If you're fit and you're in shape, I was completely ignorant. I was like, maybe you can learn that in a year or two. I don't mean to be as good as you, but to
No,
be,
yeah.
you're saying that it takes a real commitment early on.
Yeah, like I've seen people join the sport, like, not to be like an Olympian, but just like, hey, that I want to try this, like in their like late teens or early 20s, like as like a hobby. And yeah, the first few years is just a lot of swimming. And then by the time they get the hang of it, it's like year 3. Because it's also seasonal, right? So you can only really do it between May to October in
So
Canada.
what would you do early on? I mean, you're going to these world championships as a teenager. So I mean, I know there's other ways to train. You don't have to be in a canoe, but are there any indoor places that you would be doing that, or was it all simulated, or did you just work on like weights in the off season?
Yeah, it's like a lot more training in the off season, or sorry, cross training. So like that's what I'm doing right now while I'm home. And so we have a pool that we can paddle in. It's like this little circle and we just create a little current and we all paddle. They also have ergs that they've developed that we can use. So you just kind of like, you're just in your position and sort of sliding on this little platform, and there's a little rope and a paddle and it just gets all your data. So they've developed the technology to like let you do that. And then in an Olympic year, for example, last year I was down south in California from pretty much end of November to mid-April, and I was home for maybe 6 weeks and all of that for Christmas and a couple days in between.
Hey,
So
good thing you didn't choose skiing.
yeah,
Little California action. Not that you can't ski in California, of course, but
yeah,
you wouldn't be
true.
going there to do your world training.
No.
uh, but it's okay. This is fascinating to me. So,
Mm.
for those that don't know, Katie and I were at a Special Olympics fundraiser about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So, and I met you there, and I had so many questions. I felt so bad talking last. All you guys have these stories that are far more interesting. And I wanted, there were so many people there that I hope I get on the pod because you mentioned that, okay, the sport goes back. I mean, canoeing, I'm guessing, goes back
Yeah.
longer than sport, but, but,
Yeah.
but the competitive canoeing goes back, I believe, to the early 1900s, except women weren't involved till recently. Am I wrong there?
Yeah, no, that's pretty accurate. Yeah. So yeah, obviously as a sport, it's been part of Canadian cultures. We've had our national championships occur going back to like the early or late, like yeah, 1800s, early
Mm.
19th century kind of a thing. Like we have a trophy older than the Grey Cup that we award at our nationals. Like there's a very historical components
Really?
to our sport within Canada. So within our Canadian culture, it's always been like a big part of it. Some of the canoe clubs are probably over 120 years old now. I mean, they've been rebuilt,
Shit.
but yeah. So there's been some, like it's very like Rideau Canoe Club on the canal, like that's been over 100 years old, probably over 120. Carleton Place over 120. There's one in the beaches in Toronto. But a canoe club in Dartmouth, like all these clubs are like a century old. So in terms of that, in Canada, it's always been there. And I think it was our sport was an exhibition race in maybe one of the 1920s Olympics, but it was like officially in the Olympics at the 1936 games in Berlin. But that was only men's events were in
I'm
that
really
one.
surprised at that.
Yeah.
Like, because, you know, Okay, 36. So I get it then,
Yeah.
but as sport evolved and female involvement in sporting evolved, which has always been there. They just weren't like I just did a little bit of research on women's hockey, like, and there was teams going back like to the 1800s.
Hmm.
So there's just a lot that gets glossed over. But for some reason, if canoeing goes back that long, and it seems to be fairly universal, like there must have been women doing it, or was it just like in some golf in some prestigious clubs down south they didn't have women involved, and the rules were so stupid, but they go back so long. And lately, those kind of barriers have been broken down. Was it the same way? I just don't understand why women wouldn't be involved in canoeing on a competitive level. I'm sure they were involved. Like, did you have to
Yeah.
learn with a bunch of guys, or were there like all kinds of women? They just weren't allowed to compete yet.
Yeah, it was, yeah, probably the latter. Like, I think by the time I joined the sport, like, it was like the movement had started and there's barriers were coming down. And I would say, like, yeah, probably back then. I mean, I have no idea, but like, kind of in the 90s and through the 2000s in the early is really when the shift started to become more leaning that way. But
Good thing for you.
people, yeah, which was a good timing for me. But I think it was like, yeah, just a lot of like Eastern European kind of influence on different things. And I just don't think that they thought about it. Like, it never really occurred to them culturally. It was different. So it's kind of the funny thing about international sport is the whoever is kind of in
Yeah.
power, in charge of the sport. It's a reflection often of different cultures around the world. And in Canada and North America, obviously, yeah, that wasn't flying, but a lot of the people making the decisions weren't from a culture where women were having these opportunities. So it just took a little bit longer, maybe, in that way is the nice way to put it, I think. So yeah, I would say by the 2000s the push was very prominent, and then it just
Did it
takes a
have
while. Sorry, go
So
ahead.
sorry to cut you off. Did it have
No.
anything to do with because the sport was getting prominent, or like were you just like you could have been Katie Vincent, Olympic gold medal um, potential in
Yeah.
2003 and just not known it. Like
Yeah. Yeah,
just
no,
done your
exactly.
kinesiology and then have had it as a
And then
hobby,
headed
but
out.
just not known it. So when you got
Mhm.
into it, did you join the movement, or was the movement happening? And you're like, oh shit, like wild. I'm getting to go to the worlds.
Movement had started, so I was really just got on the right bus at the right time and was
Oh,
really
nice way
lucky
to
for
put it.
that. So yeah, yeah, exactly. So like that's the crazy, like that's the part that I think why it means so much to me is like I've seen the woman that in the thousands were, would have been, an Olympic hopeful or a world champion, but they didn't even get to race in those competitions. And then yeah, the big part of the Olympics, especially for a small sport, is we can't actually add events. So even if they were like, yeah, we'll put it in, they can't do that because you're limited to a certain number of events. So they actually have to take events out. And so it basically
Wow.
took a long time because the only way to make it equal in that way was to remove men's events. And men didn't like that. So it took a little while to get the world on board and globally get it all sorted out and bring up the level of the sport around the world. Because in Canada, it was already happening. But like when I was 10 and I joined a canoe club, it was okay for me to canoe. But like in different parts of the world, like that was not happening yet. Right. So it's about developing the whole sport from like a grassroots level up to a senior world level or an Olympic level. So it took a little bit of to get the whole world around it and to bring up the sport globally. And then now as an event, we're one of the most like globally diverse events in our sport. So we kind of won that war.
When you go over to these things, it's such a unique talent, and which has never been so true in my mind as the last 5 minutes talking to you, telling me how long it takes to learn. So when you get over there, is there a commonality amongst the people you are competing against? Like, because you all must have a similar, they wouldn't be there. And I mean, I watched your races there. I remember it happening in the summer and being real proud of you. And I remember you having to read out a letter. And
Oh yeah.
this isn't even part of my research. I remember you having to do that. So I remember that. I mean, we're proud Canadians. I
Yeah.
watch. So, but I rewatched the race, and I'm like, man, there was a lot of people. I mean, you mentioned Nevin Harrison. Is it because she came second and it was a nose hair? But there's a lot of people there that are real talented. And now that I know how hard it is, do you guys go over there and hang out, or is there any communication, or is it all competitive and you hang out with the Canadian athletes? And by not, I'm not only asking about the Olympics. I mean the world. So World
Yeah.
Championships happen, and people don't realize like this is going on every year, and
Hmm.
there's these people know each other because they compete against each other. So to go back, like you guys hang out, or is it just basically respected competitors?
It's everyone's different, and I would say like generally it's like it's a small community, and everyone's pretty friendly with each other, and just kind of more of a leave it on the water situation. But some of it's just people don't speak English, so you're not gonna hang out with them. So I would say countries that speak the same languages probably like hang out a bit more together. But I've been on tour for 10 years now, and yeah, I've made great friends around the world. I was recently in New Zealand and Australia visiting people I met through sport, just because you're hanging out with them and all these things. So I would say at a competition, I'm more like kind of Canada focused. I like my team and I want us to all do well. But there's a lot of time in between all that where you can, yeah, create some friendships and relationships around the world. And I think that's been pretty cool, especially for a sport like ours. And it's kind of cool now because, as I get older and, if I look at my sport 10 years ago, especially like the women's canoe to now, like they don't even know that it wasn't even in the Olympics. It's not even something that's crossed their mind, where I was like, when I was your age, it wasn't even in the official yet. And then now they're just like, do. So it's cool
Yeah,
to
yeah.
have
Well, I
seen
remember
that
half the
change.
room
It's a good problem, right? Like they don't
when you
even
were
know. And you're like,
speaking.
yeah,
That was half the room were like, they didn't realize that when
yeah,
that it was so new on the women's side. Okay,
yeah,
you just assume, I guess. Um,
yeah.
so then, I don't want to get right to your gold moment because at least at the Olympics, because again, the World Championships happens every year, and like I assume you probably get, did you always know you'll be in the Olympics? But like things happen first. Like for you, it would have been early about the World Championships, and it mentions, the junior and then the under 23.
Mhm.
So where were the first time I read about you like winning in 2013, but was that the first time you went to a world event?
So 2013, yeah, that would have been my first junior world championships, and that was
Where was it?
actually in Welland, Ontario,
Oh God, down the
and
street.
just down the street. So super cool, home worlds, first world championships, and we actually we tipped in the race, and we were winning. So we were,
What?
we were this far from the finish line, and we tipped and got disqualified.
No!
And we were winning. The boat just had to cross the line, but the rule is you have to be like in the boat. But my partner had fallen out,
Were you guys
and
selling early like a football? You ever see football when they go down and they're so cocky and they start selling before they go over the line and it's not a touchdown?
no,
And
it
is
wasn't
that what
that. She
happened? Did you
just
guys all just go nuts and then fall over with an inch left?
It was more like she was running down the course and tripped right before the line. And that was
Wow.
it. She just fell out. I think she like was overexerted and kind of just like blacked out. And then yeah, you couldn't have gotten any closer to the finish line. So
My God.
that
So
was my first
for
worlds.
each win, for each win by a little bit, there's a loss that goes along with it.
Oh
That's another
yeah.
thing a lot of people don't realize, right? You go to these things,
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, it's great. I'm glad you guys are all behind me, but the same thing has happened the other way around more than once. So does
Yeah.
tipping happen a lot in the sport?
Not at that level. That was a pretty rare occurrence, I would say overall. Like I've tipped in a race at an international level, yeah, like one time, and it was like this long distance race, and I was like kind of heat exhaustion and just like was just like I'm like it was like 40 degrees in Serbia. So but like on a 500-meter, like it's not very common at all, unless something breaks in your boat or there's like an equipment malfunction, and then you slide off, you would tip. But like if everything's all good, then yeah, pretty rare. So that was kind of a one in a million moment.
Wow. I didn't know that. I guess how would I? So then 13 is your first. Now you start
Yeah.
then. Are the worlds this sounds like an obvious question, but in ball hockey, they're every 2 years. And I know ball hockey's not canoeing, but I'm saying, are they every single year, the Worlds in canoeing?
Yeah, just not in Olympic years. So there's
Okay,
this it'll be
not an Olympic.
25,
They
26, 27, and then not in 28.
and
But they'll
then so
do
that
like
is
a World Cups and stuff. Yeah.
understandable. Okay,
Hmm.
so you start going, so 14, 15, 16. Now you're a veteran and you do some winning, right? So early on, what was your first medal at the Worlds?
So I mean, at a junior world level, yeah. So that in 2013 we tipped, so that was we got a banana as a consolation. But then in 2014, I went back to junior worlds, and that would have been when I won my first world title. So I was 18. I won the C1 200 there, and I got a silver in the C2 with a different, not the girl I had before. She had aged out, so it was a younger girl at the time, and then after that, turned senior in U23. So my first senior worlds was 2015 in Italy, and I think I was sixth there. And at the U23 worlds, I was maybe second or third, I think, in one of the events. Can't even remember now.
So you
And
started to
then
be expectations started to be, you know what, I want to fucking win this thing.
yeah, so after the Rio Olympics, so then 2016 was the Rio Olympics, so we didn't have a World Championships, and our event wasn't in the Rio Olympics. So it was really after that Olympics when the culture and like the money and everything just switched right to be equal with all the teams. So yeah, so then in 2017, won so U23 world title, senior world title, and yeah, that was kind of like the beginning of like the here's my senior career, let's go to Tokyo kind of a thing.
Fucking deadly. Okay,
Yeah.
so now you get on board. Now, were you more focused on the personal or the partner or the
With
team?
what?
Like, were you like, because you do like, first of all, I was unaware that until the last Olympics when you won, I
Hmm.
didn't realize they went down to the 200 sprint. Like a sprint in a canoe,
Yeah.
for those that don't watch, is a whole different experience than watching, like I said, the St. John's Regatta, right?
Yeah.
Watching it low down and back. I mean, it's still at times can be mesmerizing that the timing and the strength and the teamwork. But watching the C1 200 is, to me, like another experience in canoeing that I didn't realize. I knew about the 500. So then
Yeah.
how many more events would be there? And you concentrated on the 500 and the 200, right? I mean, there must
Hmm.
be a 5,000, no?
Yeah, so not at the Olympics, but at a World Championships, we have a lot of events. So we have events in 200 meters, 500 meters, and 1,000 meters, and a 5,000 meter at our World Championships. And then at the Olympics, we just have a C1 200, which is what I won gold in, and then a C2 500 and a bronze. So at a World Championships, I'll actually race like 4 or 5 different events. It's kind of closer to like swimming in that way. Like you have these mix of crew boats and different types of things, and then but just at the Olympics we just have the 2 events. So those are kind of the like yeah the prime events, the big Olympic events that kind of get weighed the most in terms of like yeah like you know
And with a runner, say a sprinter, or even a hockey player, people point to Connor McDavid. His first few strides are, I mean, he's really fast, but a lot of it is those first few strides that he can do better than most people in the history of the sport, if not everyone.
mm-hmm.
So, how important is that start? And is that a big part of your game? Or are you someone that, you got to be decent at it or you wouldn't exist in the sport? But are you known for turning it on late or getting her off early?
Turning it on late, 100%, 100%. Oh man, my starts have been my weak point like my whole career, but my last 50, 100 meters by far better than anyone else. So the focus leading into the Olympic year was really like, how can we improve the first 100 meters, like even just 1 or 2% to be with the fastest starters at the 100, knowing that, in the last 100 meters, things
Yeah.
can start to go my way. And when it's funny, when you watch the race, it's like, if I watch the
Yeah.
race back and at the 100-meter mark, I'm within half a boat of the American or the Cuban.
Yeah.
My coach, I would say his head was, she's going to win. There's no doubt, because my second half is better. But
Because
if I
they
was
knew
making
what
it,
we didn't.
they knew what we didn't. Exactly. So,
Wow.
yeah. So second half for sure. I mean, my starts are come a long way. I'm not bad by any means. Like, I've obviously gotten to this point for a reason. But, yeah, my second half, probably the best part. Yeah. So the people
Wow.
watching, they don't
Interesting.
know that, but
Yeah, I mean, made for a thrilling ride.
yeah.
So then, you get so many medals, but there's only so much time. So you go to Tokyo, 2020. Okay,
21.
you guys, you and Laurence, right?
Yeah.
What's her name? Laurence Vincent
Vincent Lapointe.
Vincent Lapointe.
Yeah.
Laurence Vincent Lapointe. So you guys take home a bronze. Now that is, I mean, any medal is, and I can only imagine, coming from where you're coming from, it's not even in 2016. You get there in Tokyo, you get the bronze, which, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Was it overwhelming? Like, how did that feel to know you had a medal and like to stand there on the podium knowing that, look at where I've come? 10 years ago, I'm just starting out, and now not even, like, in such a short time, you're on a podium for Canada at the Olympics. How did that feel? I hate to be so vague, but how did it feel?
Yeah, the first one was, I mean, it was bittersweet because it was COVID, so there was no one there. And I mean, before Paris happened, I would say that was definitely my proudest moment as a person to have that. And we raced really well. We struggled a lot leading into the Olympics. We had a lot of just things going on that weren't going our way. So we were pretty resilient through that process, and we just kind of stuck to our plan, built on each race. And yeah, Tokyo was it's actually a funny story because the course there was really windy. Like, they canceled a couple of days of the rowing regatta the week prior because there's like typhoons and stuff.
Okay.
And so the racing was hard racing. So we were struggling a decent bit in the conditions. And we had the semifinal about 2 hours before the final, and it was okay. We made it. Like, we knew we were going to make the final. It was never like that, but you just want to, you got to make the final to be in the podium mix, right? So, and it was really windy, and I remember we made the final, and the wind looked like it was about to get worse. So I go up to we had like a little Team Canada room, and I just like put my headphones on. And I'm just like, I might break my shoulder steering us down this course, but it's, you're going to an Olympic final, and you got to give 120%.
My God,
right?
what a time. The 2 hours in between the semifinal and the final must be whack, man. I just can't think of it.
No,
Again,
it's
every
whack.
sport I've ever played, you have a day to think about it at least.
No, you're just basically, I think my armpit sweat through that full 2 hours, just like right through anything. So yeah, just sitting there so anxious. The wind was not favorable for us. It was going to be a really challenge. And so I just I don't look outside. I can't look, because we could see the harbor. Like, our course was kind of protected, but you can see Tokyo Harbor from our room, and you're just like fucking these huge waves. And I'm like,
wow,
oh God, this is not going to be good. So I just stop looking and put my headphones on, just try and don't think about it. Just trust yourself. And just get my racing jersey back on, 25 minutes before the race starts, we walk outside. And for the first time in 10 days, the lake was calm. And the flags weren't moving. And I look over and I look at Laurence, and I go and I look at one of our staff. I go, "You pinch me, like, this is real?" And they're like, "Yeah, it just died down like 10 minutes ago." And then so a mood 100 goes up to 100 right there, right? And we're going out, and I get we're happy, right? Because this is good for us, and we've been struggling. So then we get to the start line, and I'm looking around at everyone, making sure everyone's there. I'm like, we're starting this race while the wind is well, there's no wind. And so we go down. We had a great race. We came third, and then 5 minutes after the race finishes, rain starts pouring, wind picks up. The next race comes down maybe 15 minutes later, and they have waves coming into their boat. You can't make it up. So yeah, like we prayed to the canoe gods our whole life for that moment, and we struggled the whole regatta. And then I swear it was like a 40-minute window, and you can ask anybody there. You can ask my coaches that were there, ask the our staff that was there. It was
It
the
sounds so.
yeah.
It sounds like a formula. Like it's if it was a movie, you'd think they made that part up. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it sounds
exactly.
so
Yeah.
put on. You're like, oh yeah, sure. All of a sudden, the seas parted. You're like the Bible, or oh yeah, all of a sudden, yeah, it was all calm. I guess, yeah. No, but it's wild. Now, this is going to sound basic, but it's such a physically demanding sport with the whole world watching. So again, the sports I play, I wouldn't know how to attack this because you need as much energy as you can get. Now, if you're telling me, I didn't realize between the semis, I knew often it was the same day, but I didn't realize so short. So
Hmm.
how? It's not like you can have a sandwich. You know what I mean? Like I'm
No.
guessing you're going to get a stitch like anybody else. What are you doing? Are you going energy gel packs? Are you just eating fruit? Like what are you doing?
Yeah, and
You got to eat something.
gel packs. Yeah, it's just just keep the
Okay.
your blood sugar up to enough to get a race. But yeah, you're not putting anything in your stomach that you can't. It's a very nerve wracking 2 hours. So you're really nibbling on a cracker. I do the little gel cubes or those little Cliff packs or whatever, just to keep it up.
Yeah,
And then and water, and then you probably pee about 80 times, but you gotta
that's it.
yeah,
You got to do it.
yeah,
So
it's a big when we prepare for the Olympics, it's a big discussion of doing both races, and the adrenaline and managing yourself through that is more important than anything else.
like a
Yeah.
and like a boxer has to stay at a certain weight. You can get away with in hockey, I think, with a 10-pound swing most of the time. But like, how strict are you with that? Like, is your diet or does your diet change the year of the Olympics? Or do you always keep her down? Or are you blessed with a good metabolism that's, hey, I know you don't just spend your whole days eating fish and chips, but how
Yeah.
strict is the diet?
Yeah, so for me, yeah, blessed with good metabolism. So I have to eat more than I can see. So I'm on the seafood diet. You see food, you eat
Nice.
it. So, yeah, I mean, for our sport, it's typically yeah, you want to be strong and bulky. Obviously, there's probably a limit where we're really a balance of cardio and strength. So some of the guys that you'll see are probably the biggest human beings you'll see because they're
Okay.
massive, but they're also fit. So I'm pretty small for someone in my sport, lean wise. But some of the girls that are if you put me beside Nevin, the American, I would look like her breakfast. She's so strong.
Wow.
So it's really like a muscular sport, but there's a lot of cardio. So
So
it's
then
quite fit.
quick and timing is big for you, like personally.
Yeah.
Okay, like a
Yeah.
Patrick Kane in hockey as opposed to a Nathan McKinnon. Like your
Yeah.
you rely on that a little bit. If you're saying that Harrison, who came second by a hair, is bigger than you,
Yeah.
and by the way, and I'll get there, but
It's
because
all good. Yeah.
there's so much I want to ask about the goal race, of course,
For
but there's
sure.
so much. All that happens, which must be overwhelming. And by the way, after this bronze, what do you guys do? Do you party? Do you go support the rest of the like how much time was left in the Olympics, or at least your part? Was it first or second week? I mean, the first one. And I know that it's COVID, but still there's athletes there.
Yeah.
You must be able to I mean, is there a
In
bar on site? What how do you deal with
in,
winning
to-
after that? I'm
in
considering bronze.
Tokyo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So in Tokyo, yeah, we were pretty restricted, and then because of the 12-hour time change to Toronto, our broadcasting, so we went to the studio right after, and so it was honestly pretty tame overall, especially if you compare it to Paris. But yeah, it was pretty chill in Tokyo. There was you could get access to stuff, but you're just gonna sit in your room and it's not fun, right? If you're gonna do it. So but it was funny, we actually the day of our race, we were the last few days, so we got to go to closing, and we were at the end. But one of the kind of the funnier stories was when we were but we all stayed in the village, and the night before so our final was Saturday morning, and the Olympics end Sunday, but Friday night was the women's gold medal soccer game,
Oh,
which Canada was in. And so I
there's
remember I
nobody in the
watched.
stands. I watched that. Were
There's
you allowed
nobody.
in? So
No, we were. I had to go to bed, so I watched the first half on my laptop, and then nothing happened. I think it was 0-0. So I was just like, okay, I can't. This is too stressful. I gotta go to bed. my Olympic finals tomorrow. So I just go to bed and I'm asleep. And then I'm like, I don't know, I'm dreaming. And then all I hear in my dream is this Canada chanting. And I was like, what is going on? And I wake up and the women's soccer team was just partying right outside Canada House.
Oh my
And
God.
so that was what woke me up. And I was like, that means they probably won. And then I went
Bittersweet
back to
though, because
bed.
you gotta get a good night's
Yeah,
rest.
2 hours up. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how good your sleep is the night before any Olympic final, but yeah. So then the next morning, just got up, went to the race course. Yeah, we did our thing. We got our bronze. We were done competing at that point. So yeah, we walked back in the village, and yeah, we got to experience a little bit with the Team Canada athletes were there. Obviously, it was cool to have the women's soccer team win gold at that point because they were celebrities. So that was pretty awesome. I got mistaken for one at one point, and I almost said I was Christine Sinclair just to see what would happen.
Just to see what would happen. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I got a medal around my neck. They weren't going to ask questions, so
Hey, I
yeah,
love
no,
that.
yeah.
You're wearing an Olympic gold medal and got to pose as somebody else, which is great.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, 4 years later, so there's 4 years go by. You come back home and you must realize now, okay, you got a taste. And by the way, what did you do? You don't know you're ever going to win an Olympic anything again. You don't even know you're going
Yeah,
to go to one. It's fortunate. Yes, of course, you could have assumed that if you keep training hard, but 4 years, anything can
yeah.
happen. You can walk, you can slip, you can, have a minor injury and just not be good enough on a world level anymore. Maybe you tear your medial collateral and you just can't get back to that form. Anything can
Hmm.
happen. So when
Yeah.
you get back, what did you do with your bronze medal after the first Olympics?
Yeah, the first few we actually had a competition about a couple weeks after the Olympics, maybe 2 months after the Olympics. So it was a bit of a weird time, and I came home and I went to we had actually had a competition in Oklahoma about 2 weeks after the Olympics. So went to that. Then we had another we had a World Championships because the Olympics were postponed, but there was already World Championships planned in 2021. So we went to that. It was in Copenhagen, and then I just traveled around Europe a little bit after that, just kind of on my own.
Nice.
Just thought
During
about it
COVID,
during COVID. Yeah, just right at the tail end of COVID.
a
Yeah,
weird time to travel. I
it was
mean,
a
a
weird
great one.
time. It was kind of a
But
great time. There was no one around, so
yeah,
it was
I
super
hate
fun.
the
There's
positives
people.
out of a bad thing.
Yeah, so got to see some friends that were abroad, and then yeah, kind of came back and just slowly kind of eased right back into
Did you right
training
away though? You
and
obviously you knew you had to keep training. That's what you do. You're a canoeist. But
mhm,
were your eyes more on the prize? Were you going, okay, Sloan, and at some point Sloan enters the picture. We
yeah.
can win this, and I can win this, right? And you must have known, but was that immediately extra motivating to get? Like a lot of people would win an Olympic medal and just shut her down, and I for good
Yeah.
reason, man. Training all
Yeah.
that, and it's something you get an Olympic medal,
Hmm.
but you choose to keep going. So now, did your hunger for another medal and possibly a gold, was that on your mind a little bit more now leading up to?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think for me, I even before Tokyo, I felt like I had wanted to continue towards Paris. And it's like you said, you never know what's going to happen, but if you're going to commit, you have to commit, right? So yeah, I always felt like I wanted to keep going. And yeah, my partner in Tokyo, Laurent, she retired after Tokyo, which was always her plan. We always knew that was going to
Yeah.
happen. She was a bit older than me, so it was her time. So yeah, there was definitely just a lot of unknowns after Tokyo. We changed our coaching staff. Had to change partners, all these kinds of things. So it was pretty much a lot of kind of change and growing pains for probably the first year and a half until I think some of those base relationships were kind of developed and we could kind of take off a little bit. So but 2022, we actually had our World Championships in Halifax. So the turnaround after Tokyo towards that was pretty short in the sense of you're well, I want to do well in Canada, gonna try my
And
best
how
there.
did those
So,
go? 22, 23. How did the worlds go for you?
oh yeah, I mean, I got 3 golds in Dartmouth in 3 hours, so that was pretty good. And the next year in Germany,
Love to know that.
3 golds and a bronze. So I would say it went well.
And how about the girl from USA? I know I don't want to disrespect everybody else, but it's fucking world famous now. Your final in last August, Nevin Harrison. So is she nipping at your uh, feet the whole way along too?
I think Nevin had like a bit of a different road to Paris. So she won in Tokyo, that event, the C1. So I think her life changed a lot after that. And she kind of maybe had like a little bit more of a dip, and then she sort of progressed towards Paris. So I would say, like, going into the Olympics, we didn't really know where she was going to be at. Like, I think she'd had some injuries over the years and stuff, so she'd really kind of gone like a little bit like this over the couple years.
More of a
So
roller coaster, as
more
might
roller coaster.
happen to anybody if they win an
Yeah,
Olympic
exactly.
gold.
Very kind of normal, sort of trajectory. So yeah, there was like definitely some question marks on, we didn't know where everyone was going to be at, but like, yeah, that's when you kind of just got to say, well, we can only focus on ourselves anyway, so just do the best we can and hope for the best. But yeah, there's always a little bit of, you never know who's going to pull one off at the games, and I would say, like, even if Harrison is like this, I would never count an Olympic champion out of an Olympic final.
Well
Right?
said.
If
And a
they know how to show up on the day. If they've done it before, they know how to do it again. So
yeah,
yeah.
well said too, and a good approach to take as an athlete, man. Take nothing for granted. So you go into the Olympics now in Paris, which is completely different because now COVID's over.
Mm-hmm.
People are partying, people are in the streets, people are coming out to watch you. It's the Olympics, it's the real Olympics. Olympic Village is bopping.
Mm-hmm.
What day of the Olympics do you and Sloan make the final and you get your bronze?
So that was Friday.
And first week or second? I mean, I
Second week.
remember it.
So yeah,
Second
so that
week,
was
so a lot has
Friday.
happened.
So a lot has happened. Yeah, a lot has happened.
And you get into did Nevin have a partner and did they finish ahead of you in the gold or silver?
No, Nevin doesn't race doubles. She just does the singles.
Okay,
Yeah.
so how close was the bronze race with you and Sloan? Like, I mean, close with between third and first, but
Yeah.
I'm almost talking more fourth because if you want to get a medal here. So
Yeah.
to me, it'd be
So
more in my mind. It'd be more like, Jesus, let me at least get a bronze.
yeah, no, these are the thoughts you have in the craziest moments. So no, so China won, and they were the most dominant. They've been undefeated for 4 years, so they had a great race. Unfortunately, we were never gonna catch them. We were in second, I think, for most of the race, and then the Ukrainian crew, kind of in just a last 50-meter push, just kind of got a little bit ahead of us. And I honestly don't even know where fourth was. I think there was close, but I don't think it was that close for between fourth and third. But second and third, we were very close at the end. And the
And
fourth
was it
maybe
Sloan's
was.
first medal?
Yep, Sloan's first medal, Sloan's first Olympics. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So this is a weird feeling. So you're going, and this is the day before your singles event, correct?
Yeah. So in 24 hours, I was back on the start line for the C1 final.
And how did Sloan do in the sprints?
So she didn't. She only raced the doubles, and then we had another Canadian in the final
I saw that.
of our race. Yeah. So she was sixth, maybe, or seventh, sixth, fifth.
Okay, I
sixth.
wasn't sure if Sloan got knocked out earlier. So some people just don't do. I mean,
Yeah. So
Harrison
slow.
doesn't
So
do the
we have like
doubles,
So we have a Canadian like selection to see who races what events, and I think Sloan was fourth or fifth in the singles. So and Sophia was second. So,
wow.
yeah.
So now
But we
your
were
second
fastest in the doubles. Yeah.
her first medal. You guys
Yeah.
are pumped. But now,
Mm-hmm.
right after, at some point, you got to go, okay, we just got an Olympic medal again. I mean, I can't even imagine. It's like, think about winning the Stanley Cup and then, like, okay, and now, I might, I don't know, play for Team Canada tomorrow and have the penalty shot in overtime. Like, now it's a team, but now it becomes you knowing you can win and this is when it came into play for me. So, me being not knowing much about canoeing, but watching every minute of the Olympics and hoping that we can, we're going to win. I don't really care. I like to watch, like most Canadians. I think, like most fucking sports loving people worldwide. I mean, that's what it is, right? It's the Olympics.
Yeah.
So we know you're coming. We know you got a chance. Everybody's saying it, that you've got a great chance, but so do another few women in that race. So we're all watching. C1, is it 200 meters?
Mm-hmm.
It comes down. What time of day is it?
Yeah, around noon. I think around noon.
So do you get up and
maybe
you
1
get up at
o'clock.
like 6 and have a breakfast? How does that go?
Yeah, so we probably woke up around 7. I think my semifinal would have been around 9:30 or 10ish because we were actually the last event of our sport. So there was like a couple events before us. So we were the last one. So we were the last round. So yeah, we were probably our semifinal was probably like 9:30, 10ish, maybe 10:30, and then the final would have been 12:30 or 1 o'clock. And that was
Wow.
it.
And not only so it's the end of the second week.
Yeah.
All eyes are on you in Canada because we've got a chance at only so many medals, and people have been talking about it, and it's precursed with you guys getting the bronze. So now we're looking at this race. I'm seeing you. I mean, I got to be honest, man. I thought at first because the angle of the way the angle of the camera, it looked like she finished ahead of you. But we're all like,
Mhm.
I mean, if it didn't look like much, it's just if you had to guess, it was a flip of a coin. But again, the
Yeah.
way the camera was, you're like, I don't know, did she lose by an inch? Like, so now we're watching you come down. You're competing so hard. We're looking at it. You possibly have a gold. You guys finish. And I mean, for those that didn't see the race, please go to YouTube. It's on there. There's photo finishes, and then there's this. In canoeing, too. Like in racing, it's running, it's one thing. But you're going to go all that way, and you're looking at the front of the boat, and you're going, what is going on? So you're there, what seemed like a couple of minutes, not knowing whether you won. Were you confident? Like, is there something in your ear? Like, does anybody tell you, or are you just going like a swimmer and going just because you can't see so much peripheral? You don't know.
Yeah.
You know that you must be out close to the front because you're looking straight ahead. You
Mhm.
don't see anybody, but you don't really know you've won, do you? Or did you go, you know what? Someone's in your ear going, you fucking won it, Katie. You won it.
I think so for us, like, like you said, like the peripheral, like I was pretty limited. So from where I was, just say maybe at the very last moment of the race, I knew I was ahead of Cuba, which was beside me on the left, and I knew I was ahead of everyone to my right because there was maybe 3 or 4 people to my right. So in that sense, I was like, in the last moment where of like initial assessment, I was like, okay, this is good. And then immediately look over, and I'm always horrible at telling, even from in the boat, like who's ahead. And I just look over, and I'm like, oh, my thought was that was close. Like there's like I could see Nevin. We were like in line, like our bodies or
Yeah.
whatever. And I was just like, okay, I have no idea what happened
And
over
then they
here.
announced that it's a photo finish.
Yeah, and then I knew, but then I could then at that point, everyone to the other side of Nevin was still quite far behind. So I knew right away we were first and second. Like
Okay.
I could tell. That part
Okay.
I could tell, right? Because I knew I
So
was
you're
ahead of
like,
Cuba and it was close. So I was like,
oh
this is
my God.
good. And then there's actually a screen that we see that tells us the results before anybody else. So it just goes black. It says photo finish. And then I'm like, oh wow, that must have been like very, very close. And they do that even it's like even if it's just within a certain margin. Well, sometimes it's not even like that close, you never know.
Yeah.
And then so the screen goes photo finish, and then it goes black, and then Canada pops up as like one for like 2 seconds, and then it went away and went back to being black and went back to photo finish. And
Oh
I
my
was
God.
like, no,
Oh
you
my
can't do this
God.
to me
Talk
now.
about a recipe for a heart attack.
I know. So I'm like sitting there, and it went away, and then probably like 20 seconds later, then it went up like Canada 1, Canada 2, Cuba 3. But then I think there was another photo finish like after that, so it just took a while to get the other results. Like it was somewhere close in the middle of the race,
Yeah.
right? Which I forgot. I didn't even realize there was people behind us. Like at that point, you're just like, what's going on? And then so Canada came up 1, and then I went over to the dock, and then because you have to get your boat checked and it's just procedure. So, and then I get there and I meet the American coaches are like right there on the dock, and I give Nevin a hug, and her coaches are telling me it's going to be a tie because we actually have a rule that if it's within a certain margin, it's an automatic tie because there's potential for human error on our courses, just with like our start gates, like there's just like, hey, this is our like percent of human error sort of a thing. And then I was like, okay, sure, yeah, it's a tie. Like I didn't think so. And then, I don't know. I just was like, at this point, I was just like happy. And then I see my coaches, they confirm like, no, it's not a tie. Like at this point, this is all within like 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So
I
they're
mean,
getting messages from the tower. The Americans are going to go up to the tower to make sure it's a tie. Then like the official result is it's not a tie. And then just like you never know. And then, so then at that point, I was like, I trusted my coach that he knew it wasn't a tie, then it was like, for sure. And even if you're tied for first, like, I'm not going to hate on that. It was more like I didn't want to be second at that point. So if you're tied for first, that would have been crazy. But I mean, still have a gold medal. So, but yeah, I think like at that point it was just crazy. And then I didn't even see the time. And then we found out the time was a world record. And like, that was even crazier. And it was just like, from that moment, I did not go to bed till like 2 days later. Like, it was just like,
it must have been. I couldn't believe when they took you on TV and asked you to, oh my God, for those that don't know, this is out there somewhere too.
Yeah, it's out
I'm
there
sure
somewhere.
it must be. I remember it though, more than anybody's response on the Olympics. They asked you on the spot to read a letter, I think that you wrote yourself years ago or something.
Yeah, like in
or maybe
December, we
it was
had written
tougher leading
ourselves
up.
a letter and completely forgot about it. And then they're like, yeah, we got your letter. And I was like, I don't even know what I wrote. And honestly, it wasn't even that extreme. It was just like, have fun and be proud of yourself. And I was just like crying because I
I
hadn't
was
stopped
crying.
all day. Yeah. And then my mom's like 10 feet away. Like, why is she crying? Like, we're doing this in front of we're doing this in Canada House. Like, and they had like, broadcasting, and like my whole team, my whole family, and all my friends are like all around me. And I'm like, I'm trying to go have a drink with them. And I got this last interview and I'm just like crying in front of them all. And my aunt's like, what's wrong with her?
Incredible.
And it was, and then that was awesome. But
How
yeah,
many
it's kind
days
of
before you
cool.
went home?
So yeah, I was Saturday noon, like midday was our race. Kind of then the next day was the closing ceremonies, and then that was Sunday, and then Monday, my family, we went on holiday in the south of France. So I just took a train down to meet them and spent about a week there, and then that was nice to kind of decompress and chill a little bit. And yeah, no, it's definitely a good vibe.
Did you take the gold medal with you on the holiday, or did you give it to somebody to bring back for you?
Oh no, those were with me. Yeah, those stayed with me. Yeah, and we were in a castle in the middle of the south of France, and somebody recognized me and asked for a photo. Like a little French kid, just was like in a gift shop
immediately
in a little castle. Yeah, immediately after. So pretty cool.
You came back. Actually, you don't need to tell. I was going to say, where do you keep all those medals? Yeah, an invite to come over here. Tell me the exact address and room that you keep those medals, please. No. Do you display them? Do you in wherever it is you live, Ontario or California, whatever? Do you display them, or do you have it like in a safety deposit place?
So I mean, yeah, I'd say post Olympics, it's just a lot of, they haven't even been out of a bag yet. I just keep them in a bag to take them to different events and stuff like that.
I guess
So maybe we've got beautiful boxes to put them in from the Olympic Committee. So yeah, they'll rest in there when it's their time to rest, but they're still kind of getting their moment in the light, So
good call.
Yeah, but I don't know what you do like 5 or 10 years after the games. Like,
I think you keep doing what you're doing. You're always going to be an Olympic gold medalist. That doesn't get old. And if you're in a nice little box, I don't need to go around in my Montreal Canadiens jersey or my Blueberry Bulldogs or whatever, but because or I have rings that I wear, and same kind of thing, I guess. At some point, people that's why I wear my rings, but the medal, I think people would love to see it. It's often, it's almost surreal for anybody to even go and watch the Olympics, to be a part of it, and to talk to someone that actually won a medal, let alone an Olympic one, and the style that you did is quite, it's almost overwhelming even as a fan. So your train, like today, I gotta let you go soon. An hour has flown by. I got a whole set of like rapid fire randoms I gotta skip by. I'm fascinated by your story, but you get back. You were training today. We postponed the interview a little bit for that reason. So what does a typical day hold in store for you now when it comes to training? You get up and go at it like every single day right away? Do you have a ritual? Do you have a specific diet while you're doing it? I know I asked that before, but you're training now, and enough time has gone by that I'm guessing you're in full swing.
Yeah. So I took about 2 months off after the games. Did some traveling. I was probably closer to like 3.5 or 2.5 months. So yeah, I've been back for about 3 months, kind of full-time training. Yeah. So today we're we're still cross training. I'm going to camp in just over a week. So next Friday I'll be flying down to camp. So we'll do like canoeing erg. So I woke up this morning, did a canoe erg workout, kind of some higher intensity, just to kind of get the muscles used to paddling again before we hit the water. And then, and then after that, went to the pool and did about 60-minute swim, about a 3K swim, just for cross training for fitness. And then this afternoon I have a kind of like a speed workout, which I'll do running. So just to kind of keep the fast twitch muscles going. And then, but a typical week is about 4 times in the gym, two paddles a day, usually 1 to 2 paddles a day, and 2 to 3 times running or biking, kind of cross training. So that's a kind of a typical week for us. Yeah.
When it's all over, you're as far as competing, you'll always, I'm sure, be involved, and you're an athlete, so you always keep yourself fit, I'm guessing. I know people that came before you, especially in something so physically demanding, it'd probably feel odd not to be doing anything. But what would be your plans after you're done being competitive? Are you going to go back to kinesiology that you studied? Are you going to you're great at, you light up a room and you got a great story, and you could probably continue the fundraising efforts. I do a lot of that. It's great work. What's your, and I'm probably going to run into you again at one of these things at some point, but what's your ultimate plan?
Yeah, that's what I'm figuring out now. I think I put, all the money in Paris and just focused on that and just finishing up. I'll be finishing up my degree in the spring. So I'll be finishing that up, looking to kind of get involved in coaching, in speaking, and just sort of sharing my story any way I can. And just hopefully the next few years find a career. I really want to enjoy sports, so I know I'll come back to sport in some capacity. And just with all these pro leagues starting for women's too, I think there's just going to be great opportunities from a behind the scenes side to get involved. I think that's something, if I could work for like the PW Scepters in some capacity, that'd be pretty fun. So I don't know where I fit in all of it, but I definitely just think that drawn to sport. I think it's definitely my side of life. So I think I'll just always be involved in some capacity, either at Olympic level in my own sport or, finding a new avenue in the world. So, yeah.
Unbelievable. Well, thanks for doing this today, Katie. Do you have anything to promote before we go, or are you, do you have like a merch line or anything like that you want to talk about before we go?
Just going to promote canoeing straight up. Yeah, like you said, we have world championships every year. I just want to encourage everybody to, if you enjoy my story, follow along. We have World Cups, we have world championships. We have drama as crazy as Formula One, but with no money. So it's even more intense.
And it's probably more accessible than people think.
Super accessible. If you're at all interested in canoeing, there's canoe clubs across the country, from St. John's to Victoria. Dragon boating, stand-up paddle boarding, outrigger, something for everybody, no matter what your expertise are. You don't have to be an Olympian to enjoy our sport. So I grew up at a canoe club. It shaped who I am, and I just want to encourage more people to find a canoe club near them and get involved. And whether you're 10 or 40, there's always a way. So yeah.
Unbelievable. Well, thanks for doing this. And I'm sure our paths will cross again. Good luck in everything you do, especially competing in world championships and Olympics from here on in. And I'm really honored that you came on today, but thanks for so much time. I often do this, but a half hour turned into well over an hour. But it's not because, I try to take advantage of it. You just have a fascinating story. So thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for having me. Thanks for reaching out. Yeah. Hopefully, I'll probably run into you one day for sure. Yeah.
Sounds good. Katie Vincent, everybody. Thanks again. There you have it, folks. Thanks to Katie Vincent, another great guest on Tales with TR. If you're downtown St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, and you're looking for a beer or maybe even a coffee, you just want to take in George Street, why not check out the Bull and Barrel, Trinity Pub, TJ's Pub, Rob Roy Confusion, the Martini Bar, and of course, Greensleeves. You want a bite to eat, go to Blue on Water, Loose Tie. Why not Wedgwood Cafe, who also do catering, Elizabeth Avenue. Strength and balance for the body and mind, Ryan Power, Power Conditioning on Rope Walk Lane. You want to go to Mr. Lube? There's 2 locations in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. One's on Kemount Road, one's on Torbay Road. Live, laugh, lube. Pitbull Pain Relief. Pain sticks that just don't quit. Go to pitbullpainrelief.com. and see what all the fuss is about. Muggsy jeans. I loves me Muggsy jeans. They're so comfy. They're so stretchy. Muggsy jeans. Comfortable fit. My favorite. True Hockey. Take what's yours, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be back in just a couple of days with more Tales with TR.